and welcome to the Rob Burgess Show. I'm, of course, your host, Rob Burgess. On this, our 253rd episode, our returning guest is Ash Burgess. Ash Burgess has appeared on dozens of episodes of the podcast. For a complete list, check the show notes. Ash Burgess has a dusty degree in religious studies and an appetite for both high and low culture. She strives to celebrate the best of every season with her young children. Follow her on Instagram and subscribe to her YouTube channel. And now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Rob Burgess Show, Ash Burgess.
I'm excited to be here, Rob Burgess.
I think since we're doing, this is actually take two.
Well, we got interrupted last time. There were children awake and not cooperating.
Sometimes are in our house.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it happens.
I'm actually surprised they've gotten as quiet as they have since we just put them to bed and we were watching some Olympic gymnastics, and I feel like it's hard for children not to be enlivened when they see people moving their bodies like that.
I found lilac on top of her railing of her bed.
Oh no.
I went to check on them.
Well, I mean, Kingsley, when he first saw it, he tried to do his own floor routine.
He did.
It was very frightening.
I was scared. I was very, very frightened.
But that is actually, I think, the second thing we wanted to talk about. I think we had two things we wanted to talk about, right?
Would it help if we went in the opposite order? Because we just did watch the gymnastics just now.
Yes, perhaps we should lead with gymnastics, and then we wanted to talk about trad wives also.
Yes.
Which I do think there's somewhat of a united theme in that it's two very different ends of the spectrum, but it's really both women doing extreme things. Although we can talk about men's gymnastics as well. So it's not really just women doing extreme things. But I do think we're more excited about the women's gymnastics, or at least I am.
I think everybody's usually more excited about the women's, right? Has there ever been a time when the men's gymnastics was dominant?
I don't know. Was there a time when less women trained to be gymnasts, potentially?
I don't know. I feel like as long as I've known about it, it's been the women who've dominated the sport. The
women seem to always be the ones that have captured people's imagination in a way where they care about them more. You know, like, I'm sure in the world of gymnastics there are some male gymnasts that are very known and people are following and stuff. But as far as being so known that just the general public is aware of this athlete, it seems to always be the women.
Yeah, and not even just from America, too. Like, Nadia Comaneci.
That was the first one that I was ever aware of, just because that was like what people would always talk about, was like that she was the first perfect 10, which now they've changed the scoring system, so now it's like you're getting a 13 or something. You can't be a perfect 10
anymore?
I guess not, because I mean, a perfect down at 10 would be like very bad. You'd be
true.
Like, I don't think you'd make it to the Olympics with a 10 anymore.
Yeah, even the worst one that we saw was like a 12 something.
And right? She was like weeping in despair when that happened.
Exactly.
So
yeah, things have changed.
But the thing is, I'm not a huge sports watcher.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast before, but I'm not. I played, sports when I was a kid. I did soccer and baseball and stuff like that, and dancing, but I was never incredibly good at any of them, and I never, even when I played those sports, I didn't really particularly need to be like watching the professional sports happening. Like, I definitely was taken to some baseball games and stuff, and I never felt the need to, like, watch a baseball game on TV. Or when I played soccer for a long time, that was probably the sport that I enjoyed the most, and like, this is no slam against soccer, because I know it's very enjoyable to a lot of people, but, like, I have never been able to watch an entire soccer game all the way through, like a professional game. Just, like, it's so boring. Like, I'm sorry. It's just not, like, whatever part of my brain that gets engaged with things just, like, flatlines when I try to watch most sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it has a lot to do with the lack of story. Because it's, like, it's honestly the same reason why I think sometimes caring enough about math can be hard, which is something I've had the opportunity to think a lot about recently with homeschooling our kids. And, some of them love math and some of them have a more strained relationship with it. And I do think a lot of that has to do with people who want a story to care about something. Like, it's just...
But there's a lot of numbers in scoring anyway of gymnastics.
Yes, but I don't really care that much about that part.
Oh.
I think there is a lot of story in gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, I really got hooked onto watching it when the Olympics happened, when I think I must have been about 12. What was it, like Atlanta?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that like 1996?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first Olympics I remember watching. And I don't know if it's just that everyone was this excited about it, or just coincidentally whatever was happening in my family life at the time that Olympics was going on, or the fact that it was in our country, or I don't know. The perfect storm of events anyway, where I have such vivid memories of watching that Olympics with my family. And we were all, like, just really, really into it, and we were watching it. And that was the first time I was even, I think, aware of gymnastics as, like, an actual sport, and I was so engaged. I mean, I was just the right age where, of course, that Olympic team, a lot of the athletes were actually, like, young teenagers. Mm-hmm. So I was just a few years younger than those athletes. So, of course, I was able to kind of superimpose myself, imaginarily into them and really, like, get like really, really deep into it and be like watching it. And it's funny how memory works, because now I'm realizing as we watch this Olympics that it all happens pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just been a matter of days, and I feel like we've already cycled through most of the events. In my memory, we were watching that Olympics for weeks and weeks. It seemed like it was just so happening, and I was so present and so into it, and it seemed like just every day we were watching it. Like, in my memory, it's a whole summer. Whereas now I know it was probably just like a week and a half.
But was that the Magnificent Seven?
It was.
Who were the main people from that?
So Dominique Moceanu was my favorite. And I think she was mostly my favorite because she was the youngest one on the team. So she was maybe like 14. And she had like the brown hair, brown eyes. So I kind of, was able to identify with her just, with, features wise or whatever. Which I feel like... We've talked about this before. I feel like maybe this is something that girls do more frequently than guys, but I think identifying with people that have, like, similar, like, features. I mean, maybe we've just talked about this more because when it comes to dolls, how, like, trying to find a doll that looks like you.
Representation.
And it probably maybe is more so for me too, because I actually don't really look like most people.
I mean, you're talking to a white man, so.
Yes, and I'm like a mixed race woman, and there are so many more mixed race people now. Now I probably could turn on the TV and maybe not see someone who looks exactly like me, but see a mixed race person with some common features. That was not the case at all when I was like a young child. Mm-hmm. So I think generally just I went with whoever had like the brown hair and the brown eyes was like the closest I could get, so I just kind of went with it, Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Dominique Moceanu, she was also coached by Bella Caroli, which, so his very scary coaching tactics. Mm-hmm. I believe he was the team coach that year too. And I mean, it was a very, very frightening and different time. But it was right on the tipping point before the general public knew how scary those people were. Mm-hmm. And then there was Carrie Strug, of course, with the, the vaulting and the leg snapping and all the.
Was that at 996?
Yes. That was like the difference of the team winning there. It was the whole like, you can do it. And then there was Dominique Dawes, I believe.
Yeah.
And I want to say Shannon Miller. And surely there was somebody else, surely. I feel like I'm forgetting someone.
But we just watched that Simone Biles documentary on Netflix, and they kind of like are going back over that moment of the you can do it thing.
And reevaluating it, rethinking it in light of the fact that this was a child.
That was pretty messed up in retrospect.
And
I remember that being sold and celebrated as a triumphant moment of the spirit of the will or whatever.
Yes, I mean,
that people were so like, yes, perseverance, and
I feel like I even since that incident come across in like language arts materials, when you're supposed to read a story of a heroic true event that's like in a heroic true event where it's like, and then this person really showed grit while they did this. But should you ask that of a child even to compete for your country or whatever? It's like we would never, like, in our like regular person level of competitive like things that our kids could be engaged in, we would never make them like go back onto the field if like their bone had snapped or they had like, you know what I mean? If they're like crawling on their hands and knees, we'd never be like, just see if you can get back on the field, like it's so damaging.
I know.
So intense. But still, at the time, I was just like, I was there for it. It was so exciting. It was happening. Like, it seemed like it went on forever. It just so captivated my imagination as a generally non-caring about sports or very athletic person. I spent a lot of time after that, like, bouncing around on, like, my, like, tiny children's trampoline, like, fantasizing about doing Olympic moves.
Yeah, I was into that, too. I mean, who wasn't? I mean, that was, like, the biggest thing that was happening then.
And it felt huge.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, though, this Olympics is now the Olympics that I've been the most excited about since then. Because after that, I was, like, excited for the next Olympics. And I feel like the next few Olympicses after that I watched, that were kind of disappointing in various ways.
Yeah, and, of course, last time was the Simone Biles pulling out one.
And the last one, I had been getting kind of excited to watch, and then it just kind of... I think I was so weirded out by the fact that... I realized that it costs money to get, like, the materials printed and everything, but the fact that it was happening in 2021, but they kept calling it, like, Olympics 2020. Like, they kept calling it, like, Tokyo 2020, and they said it over and over and over again, and almost felt like I was being gaslit or something. Like, not like anyone thought that they were pretending they were in a time that they weren't, but it just felt discordant to me in a way that was really distressing.
Well, we were still, like, in the depths of the pandemic, and it was like time was already distorted.
And so then it was like, now this is like warping everything. It felt so wrong.
Yeah.
And there was just a bad vibe, I felt like, with just like, I mean, I know that there weren't audiences, or there were very limited audiences, and everything just felt weird. And then, of course, Simone Biles was pretty hyped, so we were kind of interested to see what she would do, and then that obviously kind of went south. And then just the whole thing was kind of... like, I kind of lost interest after that. And then the years before that, I had also not been disappointed in various ways. Like, I remember there was one Olympics, I don't remember how long ago it was, that I had gotten kind of excited to watch, and then there were just scandal after scandal. Like, the equipment wasn't put together right, and then the score had to be redacted or redone or something. And then it ended up being that one of the teams got taken away because there was some kind of, like, drugs found in some of their system. But the drugs that they found in their system seemed like they were pretty mild, like almost something from, like, a cough syrup or something. So and then it was like, I don't know, I feel like they had won, but then America ended up winning because they would have been second place, but because the other team was disqualified, and that just cheapened the win so much to me. That just kind of made the whole thing, like, kind of a bummer. But anyway, this year, so exciting because, I don't know, I am excited like everyone else about Simone Biles. And I think just the added excitement of watching it with our kids this year. Like, we never really, like, did much watching Olympics with our kids, I think, in the previous years, because they were all, like, pretty little and just whatever was going on, I don't know. But this year, they're old enough to, some of them, they've heard the rumors about Simone Biles, and they're intrigued to like see what that's about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been really enjoying watching it with them and just kind of getting back into it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been enjoying it too. But what do you think of the performances this time?
So far, so good. I mean, I know we're behind in that, like, a lot of it's already happened and we're still, like, catching up, but... And I have seen some spoilers, even though I've been trying not to.
I've saw some spoilers, too.
But I've been really excited. I mean, I do think that I'm also one of the reasons that I'm more excited about this team of gymnasts that we have this year than I have been in a while, too, does have to do with going back to what you were saying about representation, just in that I think we're seeing, like, a more diverse and interesting group of gymnasts than we've seen previously. Not just racially, but also physically. Like, back when, you know, kicking it back to, like, the Magnificent Seven, there were black gymnasts, but they were definitely, like, playing second string to the white people. All the stars were... It was kind of like the token black person gymnast, and all the stars were definitely, like, the whitest white gymnast.
So funny, because I feel like it's almost the opposite now.
But also there was this thing, yeah, that is funny. But I mean, I think it does somewhat have to do with body types, but like also there was this idea that the only way to get good at being a gymnast was to be like incredibly tiny, which is why all those girls were like 14 and like concerningly thin in some cases. Whereas now I feel like you're seeing people not only that are racially more diverse, but like taller, some of them. Not that it's bad to be short. I mean, Simone Biles is really short. And like
4'8".
Yeah, but I mean, like, it is nice to see a fellow short person succeeding at something. It's like, finally, the shortness is an advantage. Because I do think that you're...
Is that secretly why you like
I do think that, you know, it's...
Finally, it's short sport for short people.
Most of the time, people do act like being short is, like, a huge deficit. So it's nice to see something where it's, like, finally an advantage. Still, I do like seeing a variety of people. And there are some taller gymnasts that we're seeing out there. And I do like seeing different people doing exciting things with their bodies. I also feel like there are some gymnasts that are, like, more powerful looking. Like, you're seeing, like, I feel like the female gymnasts are looking healthier than they have maybe, like, 20 years ago. You see some gymnasts now that look very strong and powerful in ways that I think are exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, not just Simone Biles, but, like, look at, like, Jordan Childs. Like, she looks very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's a very muscular woman.
But I feel like she would have, in previous years, not been...
In previous years, I feel like...
At the forefront.
She wouldn't have been at the forefront, and, like, there would have been, like, issues of them trying to get her to, like, whittle herself down. But, like, she obviously is, like, using those muscles to do the, like, powerful moves that she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can only gain so much by cutting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that there are certain moves that, like, you definitely need to be slight for.
Being sleek is one thing.
Yes.
Also, there's something to be said for being powerful.
Yeah. I just think it's exciting for the kids to see, you know, a variety of people who are, like, you know, obviously doing something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What is, you were saying that your favorite of the events for the women is the uneven bars.
Yeah, I just don't get why the men can't do it, but...
Well, they have a single bar, but, like, we were speculatively saying, like, why can't they have two bars?
The fact that there's two... The whole greatness of the uneven bars is the two bars.
Is like, the fact that you're monkeying between the two bars.
From one to the other. Like, that's part of the beauty and the magic of that event.
I am confused about why the guys can't have a second bar.
Yeah.
I do think that some of it might just be because they want the events to be mostly different to make it more interesting.
Yeah, but they both have floor.
Yes, but the floor just seems like the most obvious conclusion.
Okay, nothing against floor, but, like, it just seems like you could do anything. Okay,
no, I think that...
Like, with the vault, you run down the thing, you jump, you hit, you land. That's pretty standard. The bars, you know, there's different moves in the bars where you go between the bars. I think there are rules with floor about how many tumbling passes you're supposed to do. Okay.
But, okay, my problem with
what about the dance moves in between?
okay, the floor is my least favorite. And the reason the floor is my least favorite is that, I mean, first of all, I do think the apparatuses make it a little more interesting. Like, you know, the bars, the beam. I love the beam. Mm-hmm. But all the different things where there's, like, some thing you have to interact with, I do think that adds something. Because, I mean, I love accessories, I guess. And, I mean, not that an apparatus in gymnastics is an accessory, but I do like when there's, like, a thing. But anyway, I think that there's something a little bit... I've been trying to figure out how to articulate my issue with the dance moves that you have to do. And, like, I understand that the spirit of it is that it's artistic gymnastics and you're showing how you can beautifully and entertainingly flow from move to move. But there's just something a little bit almost demeaning or embarrassing or awkward or something about, like, it's like, here's someone who's going to do one of the most amazing tumbling passes that has ever happened. But now they will have to awkwardly, like, salsa dance for, like, 4 seconds before they set themselves up to do another amazing tumbling pass. And, like, sometimes they make it work in a way that flows well and it's fine. Sometimes it just feels like... And I have no right to feel this way because obviously they're doing, like, amazing things. But I sometimes almost feel a little twinge of it's almost like a secondhand embarrassment for them when they have to do the, like, dance move to, like, get into the corner to do the other thing. I honestly wouldn't mind if they just stood at the edge of the thing and did the running pass and did the tumbling and then just, like, tumble. Like, they could even just, like, walk into position and then do the thing and that would be fine. I don't need them to, like, do, like, a, like, weird jazz handsy, like, thing to get into position. Like, it just feels... It sometimes just feels off to me in a way that's, like, a little bit disturbing. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel bad when they mess up one of their big moves and then they have to, like, vogue and tippy toe for a minute before they, like, do another move. It's like...
I think that was one of the worst things that we saw tonight was somebody who, like, stumbled pretty badly but then had to do this, like, super awkward thing with her arms afterwards.
It was not good.
And it felt so embarrassing because she obviously, like, knew at that moment that it was the kind of thing where she'd messed up so badly that, like, it wasn't going to be able to be recovered. But she still, you know, had to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But I think my favorite moves that I saw on the floor were the ending where you normally would just stick it, but then you do an extra little
like
tumble
you pop back
in the other direction.
Yes, like you go back and then you, like, pop forward.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
That was fun. And then on the beam, my favorite move was instead of running and twirling and then leaping forward and then landing, you stop at the end and then you flip in reverse somehow and then land. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, and it just seems like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, that was incredible.
I mean, there's a lot of moves where I'm like, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
But
I think the vault is my least favorite.
I feel like the vault is just over so quickly.
I don't feel like there's as much chance for, like, variation in the vault.
There's also, I feel like there's not much time to recover if something goes wrong, because there are times, say, like, on the beam or on the floor or even on the bars where something goes a little bit wrong and then the person is able to recover and still do the rest of the routine so well that, like, they still get a decent score. But with the vault, if the part where you're vaulting over the thing, if you don't do that right, there's no way, you can never make that up because you're already just in the air, not where you need to be, and then the thing that you need to do in the air is not maybe going to happen right, and then there's no way that you could possibly correct that once it's already happened. It just seems like too much is riding on that one moment where you go on the... Is it called the vaulting horse, or the
I think it's the horse.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, because, I mean, I'm thinking of, like, the pommel horse, but what is the thing that you vault over called?
Oh, I don't know.
But we all know the thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see what I mean, though. It just seems like that moment, like if that goes wrong,
it's probably like
over.
the throne or something, like weird like that. Well, see, I think that's why I like the uneven bars so much, is because it's like the mix between the total, like, I don't know what's going to happen next on the floor, with the absolute controlled nature of the vault. You know, it's like a mix. It's like, yes, there's probably certain moves you're supposed to do on the uneven bars, but you have to keep in continuous motion all the time. There's no stopping. There's no, like, doing weird
and maybe that's what's so awkward on the floors, is when you kind of do the salsa move.
Like, if you don't grab the next bar when you come back, you're gonna fall down. Yeah. So you better grab on and twist again. But yeah, I'm excited to watch the uneven bars again. Oh, those were good.
I just really like the balance beam, though. I think I like the sort of the tension of, like, the confined space. There's something you have to be very, very precise and very, very controlled.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that could be said for all the events, but especially with the beam, because, I mean, you obviously have to just, like, always have your feet be landing.
I can see why the men don't do that, is all I'm saying.
Okay, but that doesn't actually make sense, because if the men are not doing that, why are the men doing the pommel horse?
I feel like I could navigate the pommel horse much easier than the beam. As somebody with those parts. I
just feel like the pommel horse could go so wrong.
It could. I feel like it's so big, though, that you could probably...
You think you could easily shoof away? If
yeah. I feel like if you rack yourself with the beam, it's... Ugh.
At the same time, that would be pretty bad for a woman, too. I mean...
Well, it's not good for anybody, but...
I mean, you've never been a woman riding a bicycle, but, like... horrible injuries.
Yeah.
Occur. Like, like normally, like when you're just like a kid trying to ride a bike and you're a girl, like, you can get very, very hurt. But yeah, so I'm just saying, like...
It's a sensitive area.
We're all in danger there.
Yeah, I don't really care about the rings all that much.
I feel like the main thing with the rings is it's upper body strength. It's like, I think maybe the reason women don't do the rings is that a lot of what seems to be happening with the rings is just that you're holding yourself upright in the air using only your arms, but you're holding yourself at, like, a strange angle. Like, your feet are straight up or your body is, like, completely horizontal to the ground in a way that just is, like, requires incredible arm strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe beyond what the muscles that, like, a normal woman's body can, like, do. But it's, like, not that exciting to watch. I mean, I'll watch it a little bit, but it's, like, it's whatever. It's not as exciting as when people are, like, flipping through the air and doing somersaults and stuff. It just mostly seems to be, like, I'm just gonna, like, hold myself up here.
Mm-hmm.
Also, though, I've always wondered, why do so many swing sets, maybe not anymore, I never see these anymore, but, like, do you remember the most typical swing set when we were kids?
Mm-hmm.
It was, like, usually, like, metal poles that were painted with kind of, like, white with sort of, like, a blue design. It was, I think, like, the most typical. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most of those had the rings on them, like, just, like, a set of rings. And it's, like, they were always the worst thing on the swing set, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, realistically, most children don't even have the upper body strength to do anything at all exciting on them. I would occasionally, like, hold on to them and kind of, like, dangle there and be like, well, here I am.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, why?
That's a great question. Yeah, and they have those, like... They have a lot of Olympical level, like, things on those types of playground equipments. You know, like the ladder, like the... Whatever the... You know, the thing you're supposed to do with your hands.
Well, especially the playgrounds now, though. Yeah. I mean... At least the playgrounds when we were little, like, yeah, they had the rings, which kind of sucked, but, like, most of the stuff I feel like was pretty basic, like the slide, the swings, some kind of a back and forth, mildly fun type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I think a lot of the playgrounds we take the kids to, I'm, like, seriously, like, just stunned.
Yeah.
Like, the level of design and, like, the wild ideas that people are having.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like somebody that was, like, having children or has been a child at any point,
or has tried
considers their
to
safety,
or has even just tried to keep your sight of a child as they climb around, where they have to like climb 3 stories up like a rope ladder and then shimmy through a tunnel to then go down a big slide that pops out on the other side of the playground, assuming that they don't fall off of like the sheer drop side of where the ladder is or whatever. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, I mean, we digress. But I am a little scared of like the moves that our kids are going to be trying now that they've been like enlivened by seeing the gymnasts.
Yeah, I'm very scared.
I just don't want anyone to get like incredibly injured.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of our kids that I'm particularly worried about.
Yeah, it's not good.
Like Lilac, who was doing her own gymnastics routine during the performances.
But Lilac is already our most physical child. I mean, she's the only one who has taught herself how to do, like, she does that, what is that called, where she flips all the way over? Yeah, but, like, none of our other kids have ever figured out how to, like, do any, like, actual, like, tumbling where they, like, go all the way over.
Yeah.
And she just, like, started doing that.
Yeah.
But she also started walking before she was 1.
Yeah.
So I just feel like she's just a very, like, body-forward person. She's also just the most, like, everywhere with her body all the time.
Oh, yeah. Star of the show.
Oh, yeah. She's the ultimate photo bomber also, though, I have to say. Like, I feel like she's the one I can count on to, like, leap into the photograph if I'm trying. I'll be trying to take a picture of, like, a cactus that I'm growing or something, and, like, somehow there's, like, always gonna be, like, part of her head in the photo.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, every time.
But still, I mean,
yeah,
I just hope that she doesn't, like, try anything too dangerous.
I'm afraid for the moves that we're gonna see tomorrow.
I am so scared. Well, she was, like, trying to get us to watch her own performance that she was putting on while we were watching the gymnastics, just because she got so excited that she, like, started trying to do her own gymnastics performance for us to, like, watch instead.
Yes.
So, yeah, it could be rough tomorrow.
Does it cheapen the win at all for Team USA that Russia is not involved this year?
I think it cheapens it a little bit.
But aren't they the ones that are always, like, doping and cheating and stuff?
Yes.
So, I mean, how much of a loss is that really?
Yes, and
probably
also,
get disqualified anyway.
I think the reason it doesn't bother me as much as it would otherwise is that the Russian team always looks so unhappy.
Well, you know they're miserable.
Yeah, they just look miserable. Like, they're not even, like, they're so unhappy that they're not even able to, like, convincingly pretend to be having a good time.
Yeah, but they're probably going to get, like, sent to the gulag if they don't do well or something.
And so I've just always felt kind of stressed out and bad for them. And even when I'm, like, rooting for the U.S., I've still felt, like, worried for them when they don't do well, just because I'm like, what is going to happen to you and your family now? Like, just you can just see the stress that they're under. And, like, everybody at the Olympics is under stress. Everybody at the Olympics is, like, a lot's riding on it, and families have, you know, mortgaged and paid, and, you know.
But so if things aren't going well in your country otherwise, and it's like, this is the one thing we do well, it's like, you better perform.
Exactly, and it's just like there's like a lack of joyfulness that has always kind of, like, bummed me out about them in a way where, so I feel like if they seemed like they were having a better time, I would feel worse for the athletes that they aren't able to come.
Yeah.
But just considering everything, it's not bothering me as much, I guess, as it would otherwise.
Yeah. But I do think there's something to be said for, I mean, this goes back to the Corellis with, like, the authoritarian mindset being kind of, I mean, maybe this has been disproven by Team USA this year, but because, like, Simone Biles, like, you know, took the time for her mental health and came back stronger than ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would not be allowed in, like, Corelli's situation.
And the fact that this is the oldest average age team that they've had in such a long time. Because, I mean, the whole thing with, like, the Corellis is, like, these super young people that they can completely control and dominate. And now we have, like, more mature gymnasts who have had time to, like, think things through and seem, like, much more self-possessed. But I do think, though, that, I mean, not to, like, keep harping about the race issues, though, I do think some of the difference we're seeing, though, racially is, like, making a big difference, too. I think that's what we're seeing also, as far as not just, like, okay, yes, there have been changes in people, like, managing their mental health, but also we just have different people competing that wouldn't have been considered or wouldn't have made it as far before, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that has just infused some life into the possibilities of the team.
Totally.
But you're right, like what you were saying about, you know, traditionally these very, like, kind of controlled countries tend to produce the best gymnasts. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, we've got even just countries with, like, just a general history of, like, you know, various things that have happened.
I mean, yeah, USSR was, like, back in the day, very dominant.
Right.
You know, and all those Eastern Bloc countries.
Right, and I mean, even still, like, Italy generally does really well.
Sure.
And there's, you know, there's some dark history there.
There's a history.
There's a history. It is funny, though, like, watching the Italian gymnasts. I never think about how Italian I look until I see a group of Italian people standing together.
You're very
and then
Italian
I'm like,
face.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, you know, there's a reason that I look the way I do. But it's just funny because I really don't think about it much. I think because we live in a part of the country where there aren't, like, any other Italians.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like if we lived in, like, New Jersey or something, like, we probably wouldn't notice it.
True. Our tiniest gymnast is asleep.
I'm hoping he stays asleep because that's why we had to, like, cut our recording short last time, is that he woke up and he was feeling real weird. But his naps have been kind of skewed lately. Like, I've been having trouble figuring out when to get him to nap so that he actually wants to go to bed at bedtime instead of just thinking it's a nap and then waking up and starting to go again.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about the gymnasts?
I'm trying to remember if there was anything else we wanted to say about them. I feel like we've hit most of the, like, important aspects.
I do want to see the guys, because apparently they did well this year, too.
I do want to see the guys. I mean, we are, like, halfway done with the women.
Yeah, not even.
We need to watch faster, probably. Just, it's a lot of, we don't, I guess because we don't watch that much TV, it feels like a lot to try to watch.
I think other people are more used to watching this much, like, continuous coverage.
But we, like, normally don't really see much at all, so I feel like it feels like so much to try to get through. Right. Even though I'm excited to see it, I kind of wish they would spread it out more.
I know. There's going to be other events later, but I think they're the gymnastics kind of gets front-loaded. I
mean, honestly, I don't care about the other events, but I do want to maybe let the kids see a few of the other sports.
I want to see some of the other events.
I mean, I know that the kids might want to see some swimming and some, like, martial arts.
I want to see the shooting. Apparently there was some world records broken this year. Woman from Japan was very, very good, apparently.
Nice.
It's funny, like, I forget one of the, like, I think it was, like, Norway or something, like, sent, like, some, or maybe it was Turkey, sent, like the rest of them, like, have, like, very, like, specific, like, eyepieces and, like, scopes and, like headphones, and, like, this one guy just came, like, looking like me, basically, and, like, just, like...
He's like, I'm here for the thing.
Oh, no, Turkey sent an assassin or something, you know, is what people were saying. But...
I do really want to see, this is still gymnastics, but I have heard a lot about this one guy that does the pommel horse.
Yeah, I've heard about that, too.
I do want to see that.
I'm interested in seeing that. Yeah, there's, like, skateboarding this year.
That's interesting. I'm kind of scared. I don't want the kids to, like, get too excited about skateboarding.
Yeah. You've talked about your concerns about skate culture?
Also, though, in a separate note, I feel like our kids don't handle getting hurt very well.
Yeah, I think that will at least keep us away from certain of them falling into that lifestyle.
But it's like, I feel like they're not going to realize it until it, like, happens. But I mean, maybe they just need to toughen up by getting hurt more often or something. But
Famous last words.
I don't know. It's just, someone cut their finger today, and it was, like, a whole drama.
Yeah, it was an emotional pain.
It really spanned a great deal of the day.
Yes, it really did. Yeah, I can't imagine what they would do if they fell off a skateboard. So.
It seems like it could be, like, just really, like, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Emerald was asking about, so you'll get hurt for sure if you do this. It's like, do you see what these people are doing? Yeah, you'll get hurt. You sign up, you ride, you're going to fall.
I don't want our kids to be too afraid to do enjoyable, slightly dangerous things.
That's the price you pay for, like, defying the laws of human physics.
And I don't want our kids to be, like, so overly cautious that they don't get to, like, do things that are super fun like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I also, part of me just doesn't want to have to deal with them when they're, like, injured and, like...
Yeah, they don't really like pain at all. I mean, who does, but...
No, who does, but it's just, like...
I'm also not trying to do any athletics either, so...
I feel like I'm pretty good at taking care of injured children, but then I, like... reach a tipping point where I start to become, like, annoyed.
Yeah. Because it's not, like, an actual physical pain.
Well, and also
totally.
Just...
It's just the sight of blood and, like, the trauma of it happening. And
I feel like I'm good at the part where it's like, okay, now I'm going to do first aid. And even the part after the first aid is done, where it's like... I'm going to get you some water to drink, and maybe I'm going to give you, like, some sugar in case you're, like, in shock or something, and I'm going to get you comfortable with, like, a blanket, and, like, try to, like, get you to listen to some music, or, like, distract you, or whatever. Like, I feel like I'm good at that part. It's after that, when it's, like, later, and I've done all the things I can do to help them both physically and emotionally, but they're just, like, still complaining that there's really nothing more I can do, where I feel like I start to get kind of fatigued. Because then it's like, I mean, I don't want to say this to them, but there's a moment where it's kind of like, all right, you're just going to feel terrible for a while, and you're just going to have to, like, find a way to get used to this.
Yeah.
But that's something you have to learn by getting hurt over and over again. It's just how long it takes to feel better,
Yeah, embrace the suck.
Yeah. Or just the idea that you won't feel instantly better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if I give you, like, some ibuprofen or something, or, like, smearing Neosporin onto the cut isn't actually going to make it not hurt anymore. But on that note. No.
But yeah, we wanted to talk about trad wives, though.
We do. I'm excited to talk about this because it's very, like, much like the Olympics, it's very hot, like, in the news right now. I'm also, though, a little bit annoyed in a way that it's so in the news right now, just because I feel like it's really nothing new, and the things that have finally caught people's attention aren't really any more extreme or different than anything that's already happened. It's just like, for whatever perfect storm of events, now suddenly people are like, oh no. Trad wives, help. I mean, trad wives have always existed.
Sure.
But lately there has been this building sort of tension between people that are interested in and excited about and people that are very critical of and upset about and possibly worried for trad wife influencers, because that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really... I think it's interesting to me because there's a religious angle to it, so of course it kind of appeals to my, like, interest in religious studies. It's also interesting to me, I think, because, like, in a lot of ways I probably have more things in common lifestyle-wise with an actual trad wife than I do with, like, a lot of the, contemporary women of, like, our community or whatever. So I feel like that gives me a little bit of an interesting angle on it, though, because I'm not coming at it from a place of total criticism, because I think there are a lot of people that are very critical of the idea of being a trad wife, which, let's talk about that before we talk about the difference between that and the performative nature of being a trad wife influencer, because that's kind of like a whole other thing in a way. But I do think there are a lot of people that are very critical of the idea of being a trad wife, mainly because it bothers them, because so much of their ideals and identity are built upon certain ideas that you could call feminism, even though, I mean, I would consider myself to be a feminist, but I do think there are certain feminist ideas that some people have that say that you have to do certain things as a woman as far as, like, what you're doing with your career and, like, how you're, like, allocating, like, your domestic labor in the home. And so I do think that some people who are upset about trad wives is purely mostly because it's at odds with the ideas they have about that. Whereas I think, like, I come at it from a different angle because I'm not like that. I'm not really bothered by it in that way. But, I mean, when did you first start hearing the term trad wife kind of growing and, like, just the general, like, you're hearing about it?
6 months, a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, and see, it's like it suddenly became this thing where...
Like, I knew of it, obviously. I mean, I understood the concept before I knew that word.
But the label and the people talking about it, either excitedly or very upsetly, started, you know,
yeah, 6
recently.
months, a year ago, I guess.
And I do think that there were even trad wives on the internet before.
Mm-hmm. Sure, of course.
But I do think that the pandemic had a lot to do with them kind of coming more into the mainstream awareness and sphere, because I think there were probably trad wife influencers on the internet before, but they were more in their own sort of spheres of the internet and kind of staying there. Whereas suddenly with the pandemic, people that previously were interested in things like, you know, gardening and baking sourdough bread and possibly homeschooling your kids and stuff like that, that before would have been more just in, like, these kind of side communities of the internet. And now suddenly it's like more mainstream people are interested. So I think that kind of is what vaulted these trad wife influencers into kind of like a wider audience, if that makes sense.
But what makes someone a trad wife?
I think that the general definition of a trad wife is someone who would self-define as being focused on being a wife in what they would label as the traditional sense, which, I mean, we can go down a whole lot of roads about arguing, like, what is the traditional wife and, like, XYZ, but I'm just saying, like, I think this is how a trad wife would self-label themselves. You know, like, I think if they were talking, they would say, I am a traditional wife, and I do the things that a traditional wife would do, and then they might elaborate on that and talk about how they generally you would see them being an at-home person, you know, not necessarily having a job outside of their home. Generally, they would be the one who is responsible for childcare and also for cooking and the majority of the cleaning. And I think trad wives generally are also, like, see themselves, like, they have a lot of ideas about, like, masculinity and femininity and, like, their position in relation to their husband due to their ideas about how things should be set up for the masculine and the feminine. And generally, all the things they're doing as a wife and a mother and a homemaker, they see as being something that they're called to do for a religious reason. There's usually some kind of a religious component to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would say the big trad wife influencers that we're seeing are often Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we come into what has kind of... This has been, like, a growing thing that people have been talking about, but then recently, like, just in maybe, like, the past week or so, there's been, like, a big thing that I think even more people have been paying attention to, with one of the kind of top trad wife influencers, who is this woman called Ballerina Farm. I think her real name might be, like, Hannah Needleman or something, but I'm not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall?
Sounds right.
Yes. But anyway, so there was a profile done of her, and I think that my impression is that the profile either was supposed to be, or at least she maybe thought the profile was going to be kind of like a lighter piece. And then it just came off sounding so bad that now a lot of people are, like, very upset. And I think everyone who has been critical of the trad wife has been like, this profile proves all the things that we were, like, most concerned about. So I was thinking about it, and I think probably the thing that most differentiates me from a trad wife and or from what people fear might be happening with trad wives is that I think all of the things that I do that would maybe possibly bring me to fall in common with a trad wife are things that I have thought about very carefully, and that pretty much I think one of our main shared goals is that we don't do things just because it's like the obvious thing to do, like it's just the given, like, you know, like everyone has a certain number of kids, so that's probably how many we'll have, or everyone sends their kids to public school, so that's probably what we'll do. I think we're both just very interested in thinking very carefully about what we want to do and not doing things just because it's like, oh, this is the thing to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not at all trying to say that trad wives haven't thought carefully about what they're doing. But I think the fear, so much as I'm saying that I think the fear that people on the outside have, and then there's some signs that the fear may be warranted, is that perhaps some trad wives have been somewhat trapped or brainwashed into their trad wifery, maybe due to either being converted into or growing up inside of some kind of a, you know, belief or family system where they didn't maybe see a lot of different perspectives. And so then maybe they're making choices, but they're not really making those choices with their eyes open to what other choices there could be, or without a feeling that there are other valid choices they could make. And so maybe they're trapping themselves into a potentially bad situation due to reasons that make sense to them, but like to the outside world, people are saying, you know, you know, possibly need help. Like, okay, like, I think so that brings us nicely into the situation with the ballerina farm woman, because so I think she already had a huge social media following, but then she somewhat recently gained some attention because she competed in I believe it was Mrs. America pageant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was something like, was 11 days postpartum or something ridiculous like that. And I think that was something that some people were very excited by, because it's like, and I think that her intention in doing it was somewhat to have it seem like this, you know, it's kind of a flex to be like able to do something like that, you know. And it's supposed to be seen as like really like empowering and exciting that she was somehow able to like get herself all dressed up and do this thing, even though she had just given birth to like her 8th child or something like that. And I think that to some people it was seen that way, but then to other people I think were more alarmed, because it's like there's the tension between the idea that a woman should bounce back, and it's like, even though she just gave birth, she's, you know, totally doing these things, versus the idea that a woman should take care of herself in, you know, other ways that might involve resting and recovering. And so there was there was a tension to that, and then there was this profile done by, I think it was the London Times, maybe?
The Sunday Times.
Sunday Times in London. Did this profile of her, and it didn't look good. Because, well, first of all, I mean, you read the profile. What did you think?
Yeah, it looked terrible. I mean, I didn't see anything inspiring about it in any way. It seemed like these people, like, are selling a lifestyle based upon a false perception, which they're very interested in propagating.
Well, and that's a whole other aspect that I want to get into. But first, I thought we could just talk about, like, what looked so bad about their specific article. I mean...
Well, I mean, the husband looked incredibly controlling, and he didn't let her finish a thought, and the reporter was not allowed to, like, have any alone time with the wife, and he would, like, basically lord over every, scene in the, whole thing. And so that didn't look good.
No, and I mean, I think that it kind of, it looked bad from the start because they kind of lead by talking about how they got together, and it's the kind of thing where somebody tells a story and they think the story's cute, but then you feel like the story's a giant red flag. Because it's like, she was going to Juilliard to be a ballerina, and he was the son of, and still is, the son of
What happened?
Well, yeah, no, that's the thing. He still is the son of the owner of JetBlue. She is no longer a ballerina, I guess. But he became aware of her somehow and wanted to date her because I think they were both Mormons, and she was, exciting because she was a ballet dancer and whatever. I'm not sure how he came to know about her, but he had asked her out on several occasions and she had said no. Probably because she knew that once she started dating, she would, probably quickly get married and then no longer be able to be a ballerina. And she said that she wanted to dance professionally for a while first. So she turns him down several times. Instead of taking no for an answer, he finds out what flight she is on when she's going home to visit her family for Thanksgiving or something, and then gets himself onto the plane in the seat next to her. So that's supposed to be cute because it's it's like the romance novel of the lengths that he went to get her on a date. But actually it's so horrifying because think about it. I mean, maybe it's extra horrifying to me because I don't like to be surprised. And if I let's even if I'm going to imagine that I'm her, and maybe when I said no to going out with this guy, it wasn't because I totally didn't want to go out with him. Let's just set that aside and just imagine that we are in a romance novel where I am hoping that, eventually the stars will align and I can date him. I would still like to know before the date happens so I can prepare. I don't want a surprise party of a date to be sprung on me. Even in the scenario where I wanted to date the person, but also let's circle back to the fact that she said no a couple times. But anyway, so he surprises her with the date where not only is it a surprise, but she's trapped next to him on an airplane for hours.
Yes.
It's hey, I'm surprising you by forcing you to date me in a situation where you cannot possibly escape for a prolonged period of time, way longer than if you had agreed to go out for coffee or something. There's no way you can get away. So already it's this is not good because they think this is a cute story and it's definitely not cute.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And it just kind of goes from there with more situations where it does kind of seem like she's been trapped. She wanted to date for a year before getting engaged, and he said, no, we have to get engaged right away, and 3 months later they were married. She wanted to finish Juilliard and then maybe keep dancing for a while, even though they got married, but then she's pregnant right away. When the reporter asked how many kids they were going to have, she kind of jokingly, / maybe not jokingly, said that she was very tired, and maybe it seemed like maybe she was trying to imply that they were coming towards the end of how many kids they were going to have. And then he asserts that they recently purchased a 15-passenger van and he will be filling it. When they moved to the farm in the middle of nowhere that he wanted them to move to, even though she was going to Juilliard to dance professionally, which seems very not moving to a farm in the middle of nowhere, she asked him to convert a dance studio, or to convert a barn into a dance studio for her, just so she could dance for personal reasons. And obviously financing wasn't the thing that stood in the way, but he just refused to do it. But then later converted it into a homeschooling shed or something for their millions of children.
Right.
she asked him to buy her tickets to Greece for her birthday recently, apparently, because apparently this was well documented on social media. This wasn't in the profile, maybe. This was just something else I dug up on them. She asked him for tickets to Greece, which, once again, there was not a financial barrier. It's not like he couldn't afford the tickets. Instead, he got her an egg collecting apron so that when she's, like, harvesting the eggs for the chickens, she can, like, put them in the individual pockets. And then, and it was so bad because I watched, there was a video of her opening the present. She was like, I hope it's my tickets to Greece. And then she's like, oh, an egg collecting apron. And then he's one of those guys who, when you don't say thank you fast enough, says you're welcome. Oof. Like, she's, like, there trying to pretend that she's happy that he got her the egg collecting apron instead of the tickets to Greece that she had asked for. And he's like, you're welcome. Like, ew.
Wow.
Also, in the profile, she said that, or he said, or somehow it came up that, like, she's gotten so exhausted that she's had to, like, stay in bed for, like, a week. On several occasions. Like, so she's just, like, on the verge of collapse, which I think is interesting because it both points to the fact that, like, maybe she's not doing so well, but it also points to what we were going to get into about how the whole trad wife thing is just a fake lifestyle facade. Mm-hmm. There's no way she could be in bed for weeks at a time without having, like, nannies or something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the whole idea of being a trad wife influencer, is that the trad wife influencer isn't a real trad wife.
It's an oxymoron.
Well, because the whole thing, yes, because, I mean, the whole thing is, like, as a trad wife, your focus is supposed to be on your home and your family, not on an outside career. But being an influencer...
Like, you're literally a girl boss.
Yes.
So, it's like...
And not only that, but it's sort of worse because you're performatively being a trad wife, but in ways that are at odds with what you are even supposedly performing.
Yeah.
Like, in order to make content to be a trad wife influencer, you would need someone to watch your kids that's, like, not you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes into the other trad wife that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, I wanted to talk about Nara Smith because I've actually seen more of her stuff, like, than Ballerina Farm. I was aware of Ballerina Farm before this whatever excitement about her, but I was more aware of Nara Smith and more interested in her because I actually find her content kind of enjoyable. In that it's, like, so obviously not... It's so obviously staged and over the top, but it's, like, it's very watchable. Like, she cooks these really... sometimes elaborate and sometimes just very specific things that usually take a long time to cook from scratch. Mm-hmm. And she has, like, a very soothing voice, and she wears, like, really nice, like, high fashion outfits. I mean, I believe that she was some kind of a model before she started her trad wifery empire. And I think her husband is also a model of some sort. Mm-hmm. But she wears these, like, very, like, high fashion looking outfits, and she talks in this very soothing voiceover while she cooks really, really elaborate things. And that's actually very pleasant to watch. I think the issue is that the way she frames it. She always frames it as though it's her real life and as though it's happening spontaneously, even though it couldn't be. Because it'll be something like, my toddler woke up this morning and they wanted cereal for breakfast, and I don't keep cereal in the house, so I decided to make them some cereal. And then she'll just, like, get out the ingredients and, like, she'll make two kinds of cereal. Like, she made some cornflakes. Like, she had the corn and the dough, and she rolled it out, and then she toasted it in the oven until it flaked, and then she crunched it. And then she made a second kind of cereal where she made, like, a peanut butter cookie dough, and she made tiny cookies, and she baked them and toasted them and dried them out. And it's just the framing of, like, this morning, spontaneously, this happened, and so I made this. And then, like, 7 hours later, it's like, kids, your cereal's ready. But over and over again, she does this. Like, she had one where she made bubble gum for her sister, and she usually is making stuff for her husband, like her husband wanted a milkshake, like a soft serve, like a brown, like a Blizzard with Oreos. So then she makes the Oreos and she makes the ice cream and she like blends them together, and it's like, it's so unrealistic. And she obviously has like studio lighting in her kitchen, and obviously someone is taking care of her kids for like the 3 hours that it takes to make like the soft serve ice cream. And so I think people are just upset because the way that she frames it, it's as though she's actually doing these things as part of her real life and just decides to film them when, like, clearly that's not the case. Mm. I think it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some people, though, because I think to me it's so unrealistic that it's, like, clearly not. I think if you thought that this was her actual life and you were a mom and or a wife, and you were trying to cook for your family, I could see how you could feel bad about yourself or frustrated that you can't possibly do the things that she does.
But I can see the strings so clearly, and I don't feel, I guess, personally threatened by it as much, because it's like, oh, here I was in my full face of makeup, just, my husband just came up to me and said, hey, make the thing, and it's like, now I'm going to break it down to its most elemental parts and make everything from scratch, which I all happen to have in my closet.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's her gimmick, is that it's like, whatever it is that she's making, she makes it from the most elemental parts. Like, she made cough drops on one thing, and it's like she had the cough drop molds and the, like, powder that she rolled them in after they hardened, and it's like things that you would never normally stock in your kitchen and that take an incredibly long time to make. But, like, a lot of the things that she makes, I would totally make, but it would be, like, as a fun project. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would never pretend to be like, oh my gosh, my sister wanted some gum, so I got out the gum base and started mixing. But I do think it would be super fun to be like, hey kids, this weekend let's, like, make some gum. Wouldn't that be interesting? Mm-hmm. So I do think, like, and I could do it in that context, but in the context where I'm just spontaneously, as a mother of young children, making these things, it's like, no. Because, I mean, it's not possible, like, without having some, like, help to watch your kids to just, like, spontaneously make this stuff. And then also, like, children generally want food when they want it. Like, no kid that asks you for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich wants to wait while you literally bake a loaf of bread and, like, make the jam yourself and then get out your special nut grinder to, like, make the peanut butter. Like, I feel like I wake up in the morning and I'm hurrying to make breakfast, and, like, there's usually, like, someone crying because they're, like, want the breakfast to be ready faster, Mm-hmm. So it's completely unrealistic, and I can see how if you thought maybe that was what your life was supposed to be like, it could make you feel bad. Mm-hmm. I also think some people are worried about her because they think that she is maybe somehow being secretly sponsored by the Mormon Church to, like, convert people or something. Which, I mean, is possible.
I guess.
But, like, also, I don't know.
How
I mean, she doesn't...
could that possibly be? I mean...
I don't know. I mean, it's not, like... I don't even think she really talks about being Mormon that much. I think just the idea that she shows off a really glamorous lifestyle, and then it's like, you too could be having this glamorous lifestyle if you joined this faith. But I think that brings us...
seems as likely to me that Harry Potter is leading children to witchcraft. Like,
yes.
It's, like, about as, like, really? Is this a danger?
I do...
How many people are like, I'm at temple now because I saw the TikTok video. It's like...
I do think that it's also, though, does have something to do with one of the big fears that people have about trad wives in general, which is that the trad wife influencer is selling people on the idea of being a trad wife, and then actual people that then are sold on the idea by the influencer end up in a much less desirable situation. So the trad wife influencer is, like, obviously secretly behind the scenes having someone to, like, watch her kids so that she can, like, slowly enjoy cooking and, like, leisurely cleaning and, like, relaxing and, like, Bible studying for hours, and then she's like, and then her husband is, like, hot, and he's, like, has his hair weirdly gelled while he's, like, grocery shopping for her, and, like, whereas I think the fear is that people are seeing that and being like, yes, this is the lifestyle I want for myself, but they're just ending up in a situation where they have, like, a really scary, controlling husband, much like the Ballerina Farm, except maybe with, like, less financing.
Yeah.
And they're just, like, trapped deeper and deeper with, like, less chance of escape, is, I think, the general fear of what could be happening to people.
Although, I mean, people have been trapped for a lot less than $1 billion.
True, but that's what I'm saying. I think the fear is that people are seeing these people and they want that for themselves, but they're just being trapped by, like, in a normal situation.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's less money and even less opportunity to escape, because it's like, how are you going to escape with, like, zero financing and, you know. And, I mean, that's a legitimate fear. That,
but
you know,
maybe
people...
you're just not doing it good enough to make your husband want to go be a billionaire.
Well, that's... Okay, that was actually... I found a very interesting string of videos that were, like... Because I was looking for some, like, commentary videos on some of these trad wives, because I wanted to, like... Sometimes I'll watch commentary videos because they often have a lot of clips from a lot of videos, rather than having to comb through just tons and tons of content. So I wanted to watch just, like, some videos. And I did find a whole group of videos that are more, like, stands for, like, Nara Smith specifically, that are basically... And these were very gross, I felt, because they were, like, basically guys who are, like... The women that are, like, upset about Nara Smith are just jealous, and tell me, guys, like... If your wife looked like this and, like, made you every meal from scratch, that you wouldn't just, like, work harder so that you could provide all the things. Like, basically, like, if you were just, like, hotter and, like, better at cooking and somehow magically able to, like, manage your children so that they're, like, completely silent while you, like, do the domestic labor perfectly and in incredibly elaborate ways... then your husband will, like, magically just work harder and be rich. And there's, like, a lot of people that have the same...
Sorry, Ash, I'm not going to be a billionaire if you suddenly wear a Cool Keith Black Elvis wig and, you know, have xanthan gum in the cabinet. Like, it's not gonna... So
what you're saying is that if I just dress myself nicer...
With a full face of makeup.
Yes, if I just try harder, you won't magically be able to...
It's not what's holding me back.
Earn millions of more dollars a year by, like, just...
I don't think that's
like,
what's standing in our way right now.
You're just lacking the proper motivation to just, like...
Yeah.
But that is the mindset that a lot of people have. But, I mean, I guess that's tied into the general idea that some people have that, like, oh, anyone could be rich if they just worked harder.
Yeah, that's not true.
And I would like to point out that none of the people making these videos looked like they were themselves doing incredibly well financially. Yeah, exactly. I mean, none of them looked like they were like...
Why are you just doing this? Why are you telling us about it? Like,
yeah, but it's like maybe if his wife was just bringing it more, he would be more motivated, and then he could really, like...
This video is
yes, really, this guy probably just, like, made this video for his wife to try to get her to, like, try her. He's like...
This could have been an email.
He's like, you know, the other day when I came home... saying that I was going to go out for some soft serve ice cream. Maybe if you had just, like,
constructed a small Ben Jerry's factory, you know.
I would have then been motivated to go into the yard and, like, dig the hidden gold out of the bushes or whatever.
Seriously.
But I don't know. I'm a little bit like even though I do see how the whole trad wife thing has kind of come to a head, just with, like we said, like the pandemic, and like it's been growing, and then of course eventually there was going to be like a negative profile of someone. I'm a little surprised that it's suddenly a thing, just because it has always been a thing. I mean,
of course,
it's always been an issue. I mean, there've always been people doing various things on the internet and trying to tell other people about them.
Yes.
To varying degrees of success.
Yeah. No, I do think it's, like, broken through to the mainstream, though. At least the influencer thing.
And I do think there's so much tension, too, between, like, just the general, like, how to be a woman in the world. But, I mean, that's always been true as well.
But this is a reaction to a reaction to a reaction to a reaction. And it's like how people on the right are now trying to say that being conservative is like the new punk rock, and like, oh, you want to do something really rebellious, try to be conservative today. This is a real, like, this is a real alternative right here, baby. I get so annoyed by that. But it's like, it's because they're reacting to the whatever latest wave of feminism, which is a reaction to, the swing back to conservatism probably in the 80s, and then there's back to the original feminism, and it's like now is a reaction to the 50s, and it's like, it's like these waves that like come and go, and it's like I feel like the pendulum is like swung back to like the traditional like reject modernity, embrace tradition.
Sure.
So now it's like that's the cool thing, and it's like, no, this isn't cool. Because it's a thing, like, but I get why it's happened, because I can see the pendulum swing,
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true, but it's just also like, people have always been doing these things, but just like less successfully in quiet ways. Like, women have been wearing floral print dresses and like baking bread throughout time.
Yeah, but they've just been doing it in their houses.
Yes.
Like, they haven't been trying to, like, sell it to anyone else.
Yes. But I do think that this is also partially happening because of the monetization of thought versus actual products. Like, it's the trend that I saw happening with all the MLMs, where it went from, we're selling a product, like, I'm selling these oils, or, I'm selling this face cream, to, I'm selling courses. And the courses are on how to sell courses to more people. And I do think it's related to that, because it's like, I'm selling a lifestyle. And like, I guarantee you that there's 1,000 people selling courses on how to become a trad wife. And the people selling those courses are, of course, not really trad wives, because they actually have a business that they're trying to like keep afloat, selling the courses to people. And I guarantee you that the way that they're going to convince these people that they can also live their dreams as a trad wife is by making a side hustle, by selling more courses to other people on how to also do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's just, I don't know. Selling courses about how to sell courses is just like my least favorite. I mean, at least if you're selling terrible products, people can like just look at the product and decide whether they like want to have it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're just selling thin air, it's just, it's the ultimate hustle, but it's also just like, I find it to be like the most upsetting. Like, honestly, like, for some reason, I think it's better to sell a terrible actual product than to sell like a course on how to like trap more people into buying courses from you.
You're just selling dreams at that point. You're not even selling a product.
Yes, and I mean, I realize that a lot of the products are also dreams. It's like, when you start an essential oils business, you're not really so much doing it for the oils. It's the dream of health and wellness and financial freedom. But still, there at least is an actual thing standing in for the dream.
Mm-hmm.
That could potentially be useful to someone.
Yeah. I guess depending on how much you believe in the essential oils. But...
Yeah, I'm not. I said potentially. I'm just saying, it's like...
That peppermint is real.
I've been to the peppermint forest where they grow.
You're never gonna, like, say that that's not a thing that exists in the world.
I'm just saying, like, even if your product is terrible, I think there is a little bit more to be said for, like, a physical item than just being like, buy this class on how to do this thing.
Which, by the way, if the person's course is successful, won't that just create more competition for the person selling the course?
Are you talking about like a big pyramid shape?
You know I am. Now that you mention it.
Just saying, it's like, wow, oh no, the market has become oversaturated.
Wow, there's no biggest sucker left. No bigger sucker.
But it is unfortunate because it's like it takes but like every other MLM, it just takes advantage of desperate people because it's like you desperately want to be like some women, not everyone wants to do this, but some women want to stay home with their kids and want to do various homemaking things and feel like they can't, and then it's like, oh, but if you buy this course, then you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very terrible, but anyway.
Yeah, well, it's societal failing translated into a personal failing if you aren't able to make it work, you know. It's like, because it's not like you can be a milkman in the 1950s and have a 2-story home and like your wife doesn't have to work and everything's fine and there's no such thing as credit scores and you know you can buy a house for 3 blueberries.
Oh my gosh, right? If only we'd bought in the 70s,
yeah,
like.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it's like now because everything is like there's depressed wages and it's like the housing market is insane and like the interest rates are out of control and it's like there's no way to like break in. It's like, yeah, I could like, you know, and it's like by the time the person that you know is selling the courses about selling courses, it's already too late because the market is so saturated by that point that even if you were able to get on board with this, it's like you're never going to find enough people.
The real question you should ask yourself is, how many people do you know that the person who sold you this course doesn't already know?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Also, I think a more important question, do you want to be selling courses? Because if the actual reason you're buying this course is that you wanted to stay home with your kids and take care of your home and your family, you might not actually be the same person who is the person that could possibly do well selling courses because maybe that's not actually what you want to do with your time. And so it's not going to work out.
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, was there any more that you wanted to say about the Tradwives or the Olympians?
No, but it's funny that you drew a comparison between the two subjects.
Well, they really are. I mean, as far as the women gymnasts and the Tradwives, it's women doing extreme things and kind of on two ends of the spectrum because an Olympic gymnast is, I think we can say pretty safely, like a childless woman. Mm-hmm. Often, she might be married, but like definitely like not, she's definitely not staying at home and like doing domestic things. Like I think to be an Olympic gymnast, you're leaving your house to train at the gym for like 8 hours a day at least, right? Mm-hmm. And, so it's kind of like, that's like really it's like, being an Olympic gymnast is probably the most extreme career outside the home that you could have. Mm. I mean, other than maybe I'm sure you can make an argument for being like some kind of like a military personnel or something. But like in general, it's on the extreme end of like outside the home careers that a woman could have. Whereas obviously like being a tradwife is kind of the other extreme.
Yeah. If
you're an actual tradwife, not if you're a tradwife influencer, that's kind of in some area
that's
between.
Separate domain, kind of.
Yes.
But yeah, it is interesting that we have so much in common and yet so little in common in other ways with the others that are living a somewhat similar lifestyle to us.
I mean, it's kind of too bad in a way because I feel like it would be nice to have more community with people that were, like, living a similar lifestyle. But there's just really not that many of us out there.
Yeah. It's like...
We're just so fundamentally incompatible with a lot of the people that are living a more similar lifestyle to us for various reasons.
Yeah. And I think other people that are doing it for different reasons than maybe we are.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, so we're incompatible because maybe the reasons that
our
some
day-to-day
people
life
is
probably pretty similar, but the roads we took to get here and the roads we hope to take in the future are very different.
Exactly, and I mean, but that comes back to what I was saying about how I feel like a lot of the things that we're doing, it's because we've thought about them and not just decided to do whatever was like the most obvious choice that, we've thought about them and, for our own complicated set of reasons decided to do certain things. Whereas maybe some other people are doing things because within their sphere, those choices are the given or the most optimal.
Yeah.
But we're just like separately doing very similar things.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's a little bit lonely to be so different from like the rest of society. So I can see why, it is appealing to see people like living in similar ways. Like, I mean, that's partially why I've watched some, I've never gotten into these like trad wife influencers that are huge, but there are some people on YouTube that are just living their own sort of quiet, very trad wifey situations that like I do like watching because they do have, certain like similarities to like my own day to day, because it is kind of strange to live a lifestyle that's like very different than like what most people are doing around you.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think both of us, not like this is the only reason we're doing the things we're doing, but I do think that both of us enjoy like shocking and surprising people a little bit.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah, but I think both of us maybe are slightly more entertained by that than like the average person.
Yeah, it's just what would seem like an unfathomable situation is like our like daily life. It's like yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness, I could never homeschool my kids.
Oh. Welcome to my world. But what music have you been listening to lately, Ash?
Well, the kids and I are studying Bach this year. Actually, I'm not entirely sure if I want to continue with it as a year-long study or maybe just like do 6 months and then switch, just because I like the idea of really sinking into one composer, but there's part of me that then sometimes gets bored and tries to like go off on like tangents.
Mm-hmm.
So like we've been studying Bach for like the last maybe like 8 weeks or so, but then sort of simultaneous to that, I'm also trying to take the kids through like different instruments. And so we recently were studying bowed instruments. And as part of that, we were studying Yo-Yo Ma, which is like really works with our whole study of Bach, of course, because he does, like the cello suites and all that. But then today, I was looking for just some different music that Yo-Yo Ma had played, just to like give the kids something else to listen to. And then I saw that he took part in a album that like him and a few other prominent musicians had done of Carnival of the Animals, which is obviously not Bach, but it was Yo-Yo Ma. So I was like, let's listen to this, especially because we had a book. We have one of those sound books where you press it and it plays little snippets from Carnival of the Animals. And we hadn't like had that book out for a while. And so I was like, oh, this will be fun to like refresh the kids on Carnival of the Animals. So then we've been like listening to Carnival of the Animals lately. So that's like an example of what I mean by like I get slightly bored and then I go off in like wilder directions, and then we'll bring it back to Bach some more, but like there's so much to cover musically.
There's so much German religious music a person can be asked to listen to.
Well, the thing is, I think what happened too, which is what led me into the Carnival of the Animals, is that I was looking for something like a little more fun. Not that Bach doesn't have any fun music, but like a lot of it isn't like the funnest.
A lot of it's pretty heavy.
I would say there's a lot of joyfulness there. But just, it was just one of those moments where I really needed something a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
But really, that's mainly what I've been listening to lately. I have started trying to learn folk songs with the kids. And so my plan is to do one folk song maybe roughly like once a month. So we sing it together. So my goal is that by the end of the month we know the song and are able to just sing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this month's song was Lavender's Blue, which I've really been enjoying. Like, that is something where I'm really proud of my own personal growth, because I don't think it's something that I would have done a year ago or 2 years ago. I definitely wouldn't have had the, like, personal, like, whatever it takes to, I mean, I know for some people just, like, singing in front of people isn't a big deal, but, I mean, I sing to the kids. I don't sing in front of anybody else. But to actually be like, hey, kids, now we're going to, like, learn this song, and I will be, like, leading the song, and I'm going to sing the song with you, felt at one point like something that would be, like, something I wouldn't do, because it would feel, I don't know, some kind of way. But that's an area that I've grown in, and I've really been enjoying, that we can, like, do that now. So we've been listening to that song, like, we've been singing it, but we've also listened to some people's versions of it, too, to kind of give us an idea of how it's supposed to sound, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, we have our ongoing Latin songs, because the Latin program I'm doing with them has the songs to help you remember the vocabulary and the verbs and stuff. And I realize that I'm just talking about, like, music that I'm doing with the kids, but, like, honestly, that's all I've been listening to recently. I've not really listened to anything personal to me outside of stuff I'm doing with them really lately, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You listen to, like, Miley Cyrus and stuff, too?
I do, but I like that, but I also listen to it for the kids.
Sure.
Like, and that's not new, like, because I feel like when you say lately, I'm trying to think, like, what have I started listening to recently that I wasn't listening to before?
Already listened to.
I mean, I've been listening to Miley more lately, too, because Kingsley seems to like her a lot. I think she might be his favorite artist. It is always really interesting to see with, like, babies and toddlers, like, their first favorite artists. Like, remember how obsessed Emerald was with Rihanna?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of disappeared.
Yeah, she's more in a Spice Girls Britney mode now.
But that's just because, like, she's very, like, girl power forward, like.
Yes.
But he's all about Miley Cyrus. I think Party in the USA is his favorite song.
Oh, yeah. He does his dance every time. Drops it real low.
I love when babies learn how to dance first. It's so human. It's such a human moment when you see someone just spontaneously hear something that they like and just be moved to, like, move their body.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And just totally without, there's none of the hang-ups there. Like how exciting would it be if when you heard a song you liked, you could just kind of, like, bump, bump, bump. Like, without any sort of, like, feelings of embarrassment.
Yeah, very freeing.
Yes. Ooh, that reminds me. Not to go off on, like, a weird other tangent, but it's related to music.
Mm.
I've been thinking about getting the kids a Tony box.
What's that?
Okay, so you know how I like to try experimental products?
Yes.
I'm
aware.
So, and we've been really loving our Yoto a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although there have been some problems.
Mostly fighting over who gets the Yoto.
Fighting over who gets the Yoto, and I mean, we have two of them. We have the big original Yoto, and then we also have a miniature Yoto.
Some issues?
Well, both of them have had issues with their charging. Because remember the big original one, the first charger that we had was really finicky. I had to, like, construct something with tape to make the charger fit onto the thing correctly to charge right. And then finally it completely died, and then customer service sent us a new charger, which works better. So, like, there was just something wrong with the other one. But so the big one's been working fine, but then we also have a miniature one which always had trouble, like, it just wouldn't charge right. But then there's been a recall now on the charging cable for the miniature one, and I did the thing, we were supposed to stop using it and, like, send them a picture of us, like, cutting the cable, and then they're sending us a new one, which supposedly will work, which I'm hoping will make it start working again, because it just wouldn't charge at all. Even though the recall didn't say it wouldn't charge, the recall said that it might start a fire. But although it said that no actual fire started, there was just a danger of a fire because of
They
overheating.
would say that, wouldn't they?
But
A likely story.
But, and so anyway, they're sending us a new charger and, like, a voucher for, like, $20 at, like, the Yoto store or something due to, like, our pain and suffering. So, I mean, customer service has been
Are they
great.
just getting ahead of the class action lawsuit? Like, this is what they would have had to pay us anyway, like, through the courts?
But the customer service has been great, and I think the Yoto is probably the best children's audio player. However, I am annoyed with all the problems that we've had with charging it. And so I'm not talking about getting rid of the Yoto, I was just thinking about adding something else in. Because then I saw a video recently, and maybe I was influenced, but... So I saw a video where somebody had both of them, and they were talking about the pros and cons, and they were talking about how the Tony box is better for, like, littler kids, because it has, like... It's like little figurines, so instead of the cards... you have, like, a little statue. So, like, say it's, like, music from The Lion King. You have, like, a little statue of, like, The Lion King, and you put it on top of the box, and then it plays. And so I was kind of thinking, like, I want to try that out, just because, like I said, I like trying different products. Even though I still think the Yoto is probably better, overarchingly. But I also think that the Tony box would be better for, like, really young children. Like, I think Kingsley would really like it. Like, he can't really use the Yoto. Just because, like, I mean, you have to stick the card in, and also I'm afraid he's going to break it. But the Tony box is, like, made for, like, a small child to be able to... Like, it's a padded box, and, like, the figurine is just going to the top. I also think Lilac might really like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was thinking about trying it. But I'm really torn because, like, I do know... Just, like, I've evaluated really hard, and I have decided that the Yoto is better overarchingly. I still feel like the Tony box could... just, like, add excitement. But I also need to think about it a little bit because, like, it is August, or it will be, like, tomorrow, and I do feel like this is, like, one of the, like, slump periods of the year where I start, like, thinking about things to be more exciting. It's like, you know, it's kind of like the January of summertime, as we've talked about before. But anyway, so I'm thinking about the Tony box. What do you think?
Will we have to rebuy all the things that we bought for the Yoto?
No, because we would continue using the Yoto.
But if we want to play them on the Tony box, we will have to.
Yes, the Tony box is completely separate.
Do they have blank figurines?
Yes.
Like with the Yoto?
They have blank figurines, and they also have ones that have things on them. And they have a slightly different library of content, although there is some overlap. Mm-hmm. The thing that I think I like about it, though, is that it's more for really young children. Mm. So it's, like, more like storybooks, and, like... I'm not sure that I would really go in this direction, but they have more characters. Like, they have, like, the Disney characters and stuff like that.
What is better about the figurine than the card?
It's not better.
It seems like the same to me.
No, it's not better, but a child, like, dexterity-wise, it's a young child has trouble, like, poking the card in the slot, whereas the figurine, you just kind of sit it.
Put the cards in, right?
Lilac is, like, just now really getting into.
I think our biggest problem is pulling the cards out after they're already
okay,
done.
The main thing, though, is that, like...
Could they just snatch the figurine off the top?
Yes. I mean, there are problems.
Doesn't really solve the...
But I just mean more like, because it's the padded box, I'm less worried about it breaking, so I could, like, set it on the floor and Kingsley could, like, play the music.
Sure.
Whereas, like, right now, it's like, I don't want him to touch the Yoto because I think he's going to throw it and it will break.
I think that you should be very afraid about that.
I should be very afraid because it would definitely happen.
Yes. That would be tragic.
But, here was the other reason, though, that I was thinking about it, is because the Tony figurines are easier to buy at, like, the store. Which would be an advantage in the sense that... Okay, so it's a disadvantage because they're more expensive. But it would be an advantage in the sense that they're at, like, Target and stuff. And there are more of them on Amazon. Whereas Target doesn't keep the Yoto cards in stock, like, in the store. And, like... They only have a very limited selection online, and also Amazon has, like, a few Yoto cards, but mostly you have to buy Yoto cards from the Yoto website, which is why I did the Yoto Club last year. Because, like, before I did the Yoto Club, we didn't have very many Yoto cards. Because it felt, like, expensive to buy them because I didn't want to have to pay for shipping. But most of the ones I wanted were only available from the website. But, like, with the Tony box, because the figurines are at the store, like, in Target and stuff, that would be something that we could suggest to relatives that are buying presents for the kids. Because, like, they don't want to, like, order something from, like, the Yoto store. But if they could, like, surge into Target and get, like, a figurine of, like, the Lion King, that's something that they would totally do.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it would be an advantage as far as, like, my thought is that if I did get the Tony box for, like, it would really be mostly for Lilac and Kingsley. Then that would be something that, like, theoretically people that want to get them gifts could, like, easily give them to, like, build up their collection. Versus the Yoto cards, it's really just all me buying them.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that was my thought.
Yeah.
And then I could be listening to music from a new experimental source.
Well, thank you for being on the Rob Burgess Show once again. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have more to say soon.
Yes, but I have to go now because I need to put on my evening gown and start making the cereal that we're going to eat for breakfast tomorrow.
You better start now if you're going to make it from scratch.
I know, right? Because you told me you had a craving for Lucky Charms, so I'm going to have to make the marshmallows in, like, the 8 individual shapes in separate batches because I have to dye them the different colors and cut them out with the tiny shaped cutters. Then I'm just going to toast them in the oven at a very low setting to dry them out for a few hours before I start rolling out the little cereal pieces.
You know, it would be great if I could have some toast with bacon and some butter.
Well,
I'll let you figure out how to
get out my butter churn.
Yeah. You have to go find a cow to milk.
Yes. That part will be challenging.
But is that the new song?
Alright.
Thank you.